Shut up and sit down.
You ready to talk about? You need some deep breaths before we start?
I'll probably get a lot of them when we're reliving the memories.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Midnight Showing. My name is Dan Connors.
And I'm Baylus.
Just a disclaimer, there's total spoilers ahead. We don't like to hold anything back in the conversation. We just like to talk about whatever comes to our minds and not hold back any details or anything we want to talk about. So, that being said, let's get right into it. We just got back from seeing Hereditary, and what did you think of it?
I thought it was awesome, honestly. I've seen quite a few horror films. It's been a while, though, since I've seen one in theaters, and I was shocked. I was amazed. Yeah. How about you?
And you couldn't hold yourself still?
Yeah, I actually couldn't, no. Daniel can attest to the fact that I was holding my head down for the last 15 minutes. Almost, it was so close. How about you, Daniel?
It was amazing. Especially going into it, we already kind of said that based on the trailer, I didn't think it'd be that visually and like just overall off-putting, like unsettling, I guess is the best way to say it. I mean, because the trailer made me really, really interested in it, and then I just didn't think it'd be that bad. You know, not bad as in the movie's bad, but bad as in like just how unsettling it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It was crazy, and like the gore in it as well, because there was portions of gore that I didn't expect at all.
That I didn't see at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I felt the same exact way, because honestly, when we were talking about, okay, so, Dan approached me, he said, you want to see Hereditary for our next one? I'm like, nope, that is the one I'm vetoing.
Yeah, absolutely not.
This is quote-unquote what I said. I will not see that movie. That's the only one I will not watch. And then he asked why, and I said, it unsettled me. It looked really... Something was strange about it. I had a bad feeling about it, and then he convinced me. So Here we are, and I'm glad we went.
That's good.
Yeah.
So the movie's basically about this family, I guess you could say, but mainly about the woman herself.
Yeah, the mother.
Annie, and kind of about how her whole family, hereditary, I guess you could say, and how messed up her whole family is, like, psychologically.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there's a part when she goes to the... what are those called?
The first anonymous, or it's not an anonymous meeting. It's a help group.
It's like one of those help groups where they meet,
and they talk about.
Oh, it was losing a loved one.
Losing a loved one, yeah.
And she goes to that, and then that's where she talks about all the crazy deep history of how psychotic her family is.
That's really the first instance that we ever are exposed to truly how deep it goes, because we kind of starting more. Going back a little bit from that.
In the morgue, the funeral.
Yeah,
she says like, my mom was a little weird, and it's nice to see people here appreciating her or something like that. But she also said that she didn't know any of them. Like, it was a little weird.
Yeah. She was talking about her mother, and the words she was using were very cold and impersonal, honestly. I remember remarking that. I was thinking, if I spoke about my mother like that at her passing, I honestly do not, I would be appalled to hear myself say those words, honestly. And I mean, not everyone has the same relationship with their mother, obviously. And this was a special case because their family was a little bit unique.
Well, yeah, and she says in the losing a loved one meeting that admittedly, like, they fought a lot and they weren't that close, so that kind of gives an answer to the funeral, like why she said that. And then the main grabbing point of this movie is the daughter, about how it's kind of obvious something's up with her, like she's a little weird and a little off, and she Annie, the mom, ends up saying like she was very close with the grandmother, Annie's mom. And how she was so obsessed with her that even the grandmother wouldn't let Annie feed her and take care of her.
Yeah.
She was saying even as a baby you were her favorite, and kind of just forcing her almost to take care of the child instead of the actual mom. Which is pretty crazy, but then it also explains why Charlie's a little weird.
Yeah.
Because we now know that the grandmother was pretty weird, and so it's okay, there's that connection of why Charlie's weird, because the grandmother kind of raised her that way. But then it's the son.
Can I mention something real quick? Because I don't think we mentioned this. This is the first one of these episodes that we are doing this immediately after seeing it. So we're a little bit more, off the cuff, a little bit less structured. But we're hoping, that works out, because it was such an amazing movie. We felt we should do it with this one first. But yeah, anyway, the son is also definitely not as weird. Our first interactions with him are very normal. We see his dad go into his room, you know, and they, for the most part, I think initial impressions, the characters, like,
of
the father and son were the two that seemed most normal.
The dad was the true MVP of this whole movie.
Oh, definitely.
Like, he was just a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like, I was expecting him to, like, kind of crack and lose it and start yelling and screaming and do something crazy. I was expecting him to, like, maybe have something wrong with him too, or like spiral down somehow.
I mean,
but even in the end, like, he only broke like once when when Annie was making the miniature sculpture of the actual accident. That was the only time he kind of cracked.
But I mean, that wasn't even really cracking.
But I mean,
like,
that's the only time he ever
anger?
showed it. Yeah, that's the only time he ever showed anything. The rest, he was just kind of calm, and he's like, he's okay.
Trying to be a mediator.
You know,
really.
even when the Annie and Peter, the son, are fighting at the dinner table, he's like totally calm, and he's just kind of sitting there. He's like, you know, guys, let's not do this right now. Well, he was crazy good.
Because, you know, we know that of all good mediators, you know, he was letting it try to naturally resolve itself, because no conflict likes to be artificially stopped, but it was only to the point that, you know, it was getting out of hand, that it would have been toxic. So,
but yeah, that was just the thing I noticed. Like, he was just crazy good in this, where he was just there the whole time. But I was fully expecting him to just go nuts at some point.
I imagine, especially from the initial character development, I felt like the son was gonna be the same way. But I think that he would have been if he was not more of a target for, you know, the bad stuff happening to this family in general.
And he says this towards the end that, you know, something's after him.
Yeah.
You know, which we kind of
we figure out by the end of the movie. So, you know,
and we also know that Peter and Annie have had a rough history, because it's because of when she meets Joan in the losing a loved one meeting, where she says, like, when she goes to her apartment place, and she's like, you know, my son and I have always fought, and like there's always been this thing. And then we learned that backstory of how she was sleepwalking and tried to murder both of her kids in her sleep. What was it? It was she had covered them in paint thinner, and she was going to light them on fire. But she woke herself up by lighting the match. Yeah,
and then she woke up Peter as well, and that's why he started screaming, and that's why they had such a distant.
Well, yeah, she said he never trusted her, like, ever again. And
I mean, to be honest, do you blame him? Like, if your mother was... Did she mention she was fully naked, or she was just covered in...
I think she just said she was covered in it as well. No, she said head to toe, so that's probably what you're thinking of. Yeah, but we that's like the backstory that we learned, that why they fight and argue about stuff, and that's why he is kind of a troubled child, where he goes and parties and kind of goes behind her back. He smokes weed and drinks and all this stuff. But he plays it off really well. Like when she's working up in the studio, and he's just like, "Can I go to this school function thing?"
Yeah,
like, he's really chill with it. He's not just kind of being like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah, I think most teenagers would have been like, "Hell no, I'm not bringing my."
Yeah, you know, like, so the mom like says, "Bring your sister if she wants to go."
Yeah.
And he plays it off just really well, where he's like, I mean, does she want to? Like, he's being nice about it.
It was a sort of battle of wits at that point, because the mom was obviously thinking, she mentions this too, that he was going to go to a party, which he was. So that's why she mentioned, "You're not going to be drinking," and he's like, "What? It's a barbecue. We can't even."
Yeah, it's like a school barbecue thing.
And it's like they're obviously trying to battle wits here, and so I think the son is
because he said, "We're not even old enough if we wanted to," and she said, "Well, yeah."
That's not the question I asked, or something like that. It was something different. Anyway, it's not important. But I did feel like that exchange was really interesting. I liked it a lot, because at some point, and I know it is addressed, that it's like, you're not, you know, that's not an answer, you know. But anyway, moving on.
Well, so
we're really seeing, that's the first instance that we see this trouble. Because if he had asked his dad, he probably would have been like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." But because he asked his mom, you know, I'm pretty sure that's why she was like, I don't know. Honestly, in my opinion, I was kind of confused as to why he said, "Yeah." I would have just said, "Yeah, my sister said she didn't want to go."
I thought he'd kind of come up with an excuse.
Yeah, like, I thought that he'd probably say that, and then she would, like, not find out until after he had gone already, right? Especially because, like, you know, the sister didn't want to go. She's like, "No, I don't want to go."
Yeah, but, like, the mom was kind of...
It was because that he had to convince her to go. Anyway, yeah.
So he takes her to this, like, party, like an actual, like it's not a school barbecue, but it's a real party.
It was in no way even, like, I would not feel comfortable leaving my little sister, like, in a party like that. None of them were of anywhere close age to her.
Yeah.
And they kind of made it sound like they went to the same school.
Well, they did go to the same
I guess
school.
she was 13, so that's freshman, right?
Yeah, it's like a high school. Yeah, he takes her, and he's, like, into this girl. Like, he's checking her out in class and everything. And he goes to the party to, like, kind of hit on with her. And he, like, the sister's just tagging along. Like, there's that frame where she's standing, like, right behind him and just kind of looking at her toy thing.
Yeah. And that's, to kind of go into the themes of this and this visuals, that's one thing that you kind of see that sister always kind of with the same, like, I don't even know what look it
cinematography
is.
is just, like...
It was really great.
Just insanely good.
Because honestly, there were so many parts where I felt like it was like any other movie. I almost thought at one point, I was like, am I sure this isn't a drama? You know, like it almost seemed to be showcasing.
Well, a lot of the early shots were very, like, not nearly as unsettling shots that you see a lot in horror movies.
They did have that, like, theme of, like, this sister particularly, she had this face on, like she was just displeased to exist.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was really... So, especially in a party setting like that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even when she's eating cake later in this party, she's just like...
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And she's eating, and it's like, wow, you're not even happy to be eating cake?
So the brother, like, tries to get the girl to go up and smoke some weed with him. Yeah. And so he just tells the...
That was.
Yeah.
It wasn't subtle at all.
He just tells the sister to just go get some cake, and she's, like, saying no. Like, she's...
Yeah, she's disagreeing. She's like, no, I can't go get that cake.
Yeah.
And then he's like, why not? They're handing it out. You know, they're cutting it up. It's a party. And then she's saying...
Because she's saying, like, I don't know any of them.
No,
like,
they're not going to give me any,
yeah.
you know, or something like that. This girl did that several times where she almost seemed to, like be aware of the situation, like, without actually being there. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like she knew that they would not... I mean, obviously, that wasn't the case because she did get some cake while her brother was smoking in the room, right?
Yeah.
Which...
Well, yeah, and as soon as he said, go get some cake, I knew that was coming because of the foreshadowing at the funeral. Where
they mentioned she didn't have an EpiPen.
It was so random. That was one of the only parts that I was like, that felt really out of place. Because it's just, she pulls out a candy bar.
No, I noticed that too.
Yeah, and they're like...
they both asked her. Like, the dad asked, does that have nuts in it?
Yeah.
You know? And then she's like, no. And then he's like, okay, good. And then the
mom
comes
says,
up immediately after and says, does it have nuts in it?
Yeah, because we don't have the EpiPen.
Pissed me off so much. Everyone knows that Hershey's chocolate that has nuts in it is rounded on the top. It's not the bars. So you know what? I hate these adults.
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know.
It's the most iconic
nuts.
factor of the fact that it's like milk chocolate. Not. I mean,
yeah.
anywho.
As soon as I saw her getting the cake, and I was like,
I was impressed that you leaned over immediately. And you're like, there's nuts in it.
Yeah. Well, because I knew something had to go wrong.
Yeah, and then like nothing was happening for a while, so I was like, oh, it's the weed.
Oh yeah, it was kind of weird because I thought it would happen more quick. Well, you saw it kind of happening when she was eating it. She was kind of like had like a disgust.
Yeah, so there was something wrong with the cake. We knew at that point, but what it was, because we saw her then move around. She was getting water. That's right, I remember that. Yeah. She's getting water. I'm like, yeah, that's totally high. Like, there's totally weed in that. So I honestly, when he asked this girl if she wanted to smoke with him, she took a very long time to respond. I was certain she would just get up and walk away. Like, she was just done with him.
She kind of stood up and just walked for a second, but then she turned around and said, like, there's one upstairs.
There's a room over there. And I was like, wow, really? This dude, I mean, he did have a pretty huge bag of weed, so it's like, come on. Anywho.
Yeah, so he's up there, like, smoking with his friends and the girl and stuff, and...
Then downstairs, his sister's having a nut allergy, which we now know.
Yeah, because she runs up and she's, like, panting in the doorway, and she's saying...
Yeah, like, and she's like, my throat's restrictive. It's hurting.
It was kind of weird because she said, I feel my throat getting bigger.
Yeah.
Which that was...
Well, I mean, she's 13 and a little weird.
I don't know.
That's the thing is, like, a lot of those statements that she made seemed like statements that would be made by, like, a much younger child that didn't know. Anywho, so
she's having the allergic reaction, and she goes up and tells Peter, and she's saying, like, you know, I need to go right now. And so he rushes her. Well, she didn't even say that. She was just, like, panting.
Yeah,
and
she did.
He rushes her out. carrying her up into the car.
And then he gets into the car and is driving down this country road. We don't see a light in sight.
Yeah, that was like, again, back to going to the visuals, like that was crazy. The lights shining up on the street, and then as he turns the corner, you see the brake lights going out.
Honestly,
the driving lights.
I don't know exactly how they did it, but I knew when I was watching this, I leaned over and I'm like, $5 as he crashes the car.
Oh yeah.
But then after that, I was just enthralled. Like these scenes in these movies, I don't know how they do it, but they're really capturing the eye. I mean, we didn't even see anything. There were no visual, like...
Oh, you mean of the actual road? Like when it had the dash cam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, something about it was just methodically placed in such a way that it wasn't...
Well, most of it's just directional headlights, where it's only showing the road. Like, they didn't have high beams on or something.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of nowhere, so there's no other light.
Yeah. But that's the interesting part, is that typical car chases or car driving scenes... You see a lot of background, a lot of scenery because you're in the daytime usually.
Yeah.
This one was very deliberately chosen to be obviously at night, but
it's supposed to keep you tense too.
Yeah.
Like, that's why horror movie cinematography is so fascinating to me, because they use these shots so much differently than other movies, especially the unsettling ones. They use a lot of like crane shots where it's swooping movements, like very long swooping movements, and it's unsettling to people. People don't like those like long camera movements. They like the choppy, Marvel type stuff where it's chop, 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 chop. And so that's what I like so much about them, is that you get those kind of crazy angles where it's right on the dash cam and it's going, and then we see
a lot of these throughout that movie.
Yeah. And so you see the deer coming up on the road, which...
Well, it's not a live deer. It's on the road. It's laying down, like it has been hit already. Yeah. And it's just at this point, well, just prior to this, we're kind of seeing the sister. She's kicking and screaming. She's really, and I admit it'd be scary, not be able to breathe.
And he's like worried. He's saying like, we're almost at the hospital.
Yeah.
It'll just be a second.
And so then it's at this point she puts the window down and she's trying to gasp this air in, and then that deer comes and I'm like, oh well, there we go. We're about to hit it, and he swerves off.
I thought she was gonna fall out.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
That's what I thought would happen. Well, actually, there was a shot of her reaching for the door. I thought she would open the door.
Out there,
I thought she'd open the door and fall out. But then she puts the window down. I'm like, okay, maybe she's gonna
she's okay.
fall out. And so then we
especially when the paper comes up and hits her.
Yeah, and so then we see the deer, and then I'm like, okay, he's gonna swerve and she's gonna fall out.
Yeah.
But then, totally unexpected, she
goes for the...
Well, it's actually hard. It's hard to say because it's unexpected, because they also foreshadowed it where they were driving by and it cut to the telephone pole.
I did not notice that, honestly.
Oh, really? That was one of the coolest shots, because it was on track, like the camera was on a track moving with the car, and then it stops, like dead stop on the telephone pole with the little symbol on it, the ritual symbol thing.
Oh.
It like dead stopped on the telephone pole, and that's the same pole that they hit on the Yeah, and so it's like unexpected, but it's also like
that was brilliant, because the thing is classic misdirection. We think it's weed in the cake, and then it's actually nuts, and then she reaches for the handle and we think she's gonna fall out, and then she goes for the window and we think she's gonna fall out. Especially because I know that paper was deliberate. That was not.
And that's what's so good about like the suspense movies, is because it's not just horror where they pop out and they scare you. It's like they're building tension.
And specifically, when I see a fantastic film like this that I think just really kicks it into great territory in terms of the genre, I like to pay respects to the studio. A24, you said it was?
Yeah.
Brilliant guys. Whatever they're doing over there.
They do a lot of cool stuff.
Anyway, so yeah, in this, she's sticking her head out and he swerves.
Yeah, you're talking about misdirection. Is we think she's gonna fall out.
Yeah.
And then you see the deer, he swerves, and then.
And then you really think she's gonna fall out until that pole comes up, and then, bam,
smacks her right in the head.
And here's the thing, it was so beautiful, and I use that word distastefully here, but I hope it's recognized that I mean the cinematography,
the shots,
not the situation, about capturing every little detail of this. This boy has attended a party against his parents' will. He deliberately made it seem like a barbecue, and you can fact check that easily, after the fact, right? They could have gone in and said, was there an actual barbecue here? Like, hell no, we didn't have a barbecue. So then, you check with like other parents and then find out one told them that there was a party. I'm saying like it wouldn't be hard for them.
So you're saying you think the mom knows that it wasn't a barbecue?
What I'm saying is, I think put yourself in this kid's shoes for a minute. What do you think? You're thinking Peter's shoes.
Yeah.
He was very worried about his sister being hurt, and then now he's sitting in this car. He doesn't hear his sister.
Oh, you're
anymore.
talking about after.
Yeah, after.
Oh,
she
I
gets
thought you were
hit.
talking about the cuts like during the crash.
No, I'm talking about like immediately after it gets hit, and he swerves to a stop, and he's sitting there, right? And it was very deliberately long. Right?
Yeah.
He was sitting in there. I couldn't even tell if he actually got a glimpse of what was in the rear view. He looked up to the rear view mirror.
He peeked up for a second and he just saw like the body. Well, it was like a shoulder blade.
Yeah, you really could not see a whole lot.
All you saw was part of a figure, and he looks right back down.
Yeah, and it took so long to get there, and I love that was such a just fascinating scene because you're really seeing everything go through about what's happening.
Emotionally through him because you see him like he's shocked and then he starts to calm down and then he just gets sad and like upset.
Yeah, and very little was actually done in this scene. You know, like all that was done is if you just boil it down to what happened, he looked up and then he looked back and then he started driving it.
Well, yeah, other than that, the camera didn't move.
It took about 40 seconds to actually get there.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was very, very distilling of what we were going to be expecting in the next bit of this movie.
Well, yeah, and then it leads into, which was one of the points I wanted to say, is that he gets home. Yeah. He doesn't do a thing about her. Yep. He doesn't even look at her. He stops the car, walks inside, which is another really long shot that we were talking about. And that's what I was saying about these the, like suspense, the
aerial
movies.
Kind of ones.
It's like way up in the back. And it's very long. The camera itself doesn't move.
Yeah.
And because that's what's so cool about them is they'll either do the camera moves way more than we're used to, or you get those long sweeping shots, or the camera is fixated for like 3 minutes. And that's what is so crazy good is that this one was fixated in like the trees, which it was all actually, now that I think about it, it was in pretty much the position of the treehouse. Like it was we were looking at it from the treehouse, from her treehouse.
Yeah.
Looking at him, and he just parks and walks inside, like slowly walks inside. He doesn't even look in the back seat of the car. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Walks in, goes upstairs, and then you hear the parents say like,
"It's in the morning at this point."
No, that's at night.
Oh yeah,
because he walks in, you hear the parents say, "Oh, good, they're home."
Yeah.
And then he lays down. And
he doesn't do a dang. He walks in there. He doesn't even stop. He just walks in, he lays down,
to the parents.
And then we see in the morning he's still laying there with his eyes open. I mean, honestly, I can't even. I wish I would have, but like I probably wouldn't have done anything different. I probably would have like gone and got my dad afterwards, in the morning, but not. I don't know, not that late, But I mean, who knows? I wouldn't even know how to comprehend if I had been at fault.
Yeah, and I was trying to like. In my head, I was trying to say, like, okay, how could he even formulate that story?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, think about this. I was thinking about how hard it'd be to tell your way out of that one. Like, okay, you took your little sister to a party or to a barbecue, and then she was fed nuts.
Which that part would be fine, because that would be easy to get out of. Yeah. It's just like, oh, she had nuts.
But then this convoluted story of, she must have been reaching her head out the window because she was having trouble breathing. And then we see, all of a sudden, this deer's in the road. I swerve, and her head hits the pole.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a gruesome story to tell. Not only one that is just difficult to wrap your mind around how unlucky it is. I think that's most of the shock of what this guy's going through. And honestly, I can't even imagine going through that as a famwas if they were,
and then
they were unsettled before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because then they said that the grandma just like was it like a month or a couple of weeks before had just died. So it's like pretty soon after.
Yeah, a month before.
And you see the turmoil in the mom herself as she's like screaming on the floor saying that she wants to die now.
Yeah, which I'd like to highlight forward into this a little bit so that we're not going, jumping too far ahead of the events, but I would like to get a little bit dynamic here. When they're at the dinner table where they're having that argument later in the movie, the mom is just throwing Peter under the bus, like just decimating him. And she mentions explicitly, we could have let this all bring us together.
Yeah.
But like, think about that. That's a very strange statement. I mean, I may just not understand really what it's like. Maybe losing family makes it easier for for a family to kind of bring together, you realize maybe maybe you cherish the family you have left more. But when it's at the fault of another family member, I mean, there's no real way I don't know, So I think that highlights a little bit of why their mother,
the grandma,
Annie.
Oh,
sorry, I said that.
Yeah,
in a weird
it's so
way.
confusing because there's like two mothers.
Yeah, Annie and Grandma, or what I'm gonna call them.
Mm-hmm.
So when Annie is talking about that, I kind of was like, wow, shocked, like disturbed. Not only because she was just throwing her son Peter under the bus, but also that like it was showing a lot of like what she felt and was trained by her mother, the grandma. And it really highlights that this is an ancestral thing that kind of goes, maybe not hereditary, but it's definitely accumulated.
Well, yeah, it's just a play on like the word of how like your family dynamic is passed down, kind of how like the grandma was, we're supposed to know is kind of psychotic. Well, and she says she has DID.
And what's DID?
Dissociative identity disorder.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like...
isn't that the one that...
It's like not...
you don't think you are yourself, like you're dissociated with your own actions sometimes?
Yeah.
So now that we got that one, that's the main driving force, the conflict behind this movie, is that Peter feels responsible for the death of his sister, and the mother is having trouble coping with not only the loss of...
you just start to see the whole family tear apart, basically.
Yeah.
Because, like, you see it tearing apart with... I mean, not tearing apart, but there's problems with the grandma dying, but then this crazy event happens, and it's like, okay, now that's the turn of the switch for the family and for the movie itself, where, okay, now stuff is serious, and from this point on, it's going to be kind of nuts, because, before, like you were saying, Peter was... like the dad, one of the most normal people in the movie. Yeah. And then after that, he's just totally different. Like he's just stone cold.
Comatose.
Yeah, like he's totally different.
He's not necessarily psychotic or he experiences a lot of emotion, but I recognize several times you see him do a lot of activities, and he does them very methodically. He doesn't experience any emotion. In the original, when Grandma died, he was strumming on his guitar, playing the guitar, and then his dad's like, yo, like, or no, it wasn't, it was when he was going to bed.
That was when he was doing it. The dad's like, are you sad, or are you doing okay? And he's just like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah,
I was mixing up when he came in to wake him up. Yeah. But anyway, and then in that circumstance, after the fact, he doesn't play that guitar. We don't see him pick it up another time again.
Well, yeah, and you see it again with the, like, he was super chill about just, like, smoking with friends and stuff. Like, he's doing it in his bedroom, and then he's doing it with friends at the party. But then after the sister, he does it under the bleachers with those friends. Yeah. And then he goes from just being super chill to, like, having reactions to it.
Oh, yeah.
Which I didn't know if... so the sister had the anaphylactic shock to the nuts, and so it was almost like a parallel that after he killed her on accident, now he was having reactions to his thing. Because
he said
the same thing. He's like, my throat's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was kind of like, oh, there's a weird kind of spiritual, weird, like, ghost passed down type thing where now he's getting affected, which then links in, of course, all the way to the end where, everyone's connected in this family, where it's spiritually, and there's actual, like, supernatural stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which, again, going to the trailers, I didn't expect a whole bunch of supernatural stuff.
I
think
pretty
crazy.
That was beautiful. I am so glad that the trailer did what it did, because
A24's trailers are pretty good like that, where they make you like, oh, that's intriguing, I want to see that. And then it's just like, what even is this movie?
It's a trailer that makes you aware of its intent. I was aware of its intent. Yeah, I was unsettled, right? And I was like, I'm not sure if I want to watch this. But we didn't even see anything. I was shocked when she died like that.
The sister?
I
thought the whole movie was going to be about the sister.
Yeah, and my thoughts were, what's going to happen is he's going to go to bed, they're going to wake up, and then they're going to play this whole thing where she walks out there to go to the car, and nothing happens. And then the brother wakes up and is like, what the hell? And then runs outside and doesn't see his little sister in the car, or her body. And then he runs up to her room and sees her. I honestly thought she just would have, like, lived as, like, a ghost thing But she died right then and there, and we never see her again.
That was again
except
too,
for one other time.
I thought I didn't think she'd get actually in the car accident. I didn't think she was actually fully decapitated.
Yeah.
I thought it because it looked like
it
was
would just
smack.
yeah.
So I thought she was fully there.
Yeah.
And then when
you see
when the mom finds her, she's screaming, and then you hear the scream overlay into like the gory shot of her head laying down on the side of the road.
that's being just desiccated by ants,
like maggots and stuff. Yeah, because that was where I was like, oh, she was actually decapitated.
Yeah.
Which is even crazier.
Yeah. Because it would have to be going at a very fast pace, and you'd have to extend your...
Well, I mean, he was going at, like, the last shot we saw of his speed was, like, 85.
I mean, still, like, all those muscles being torn like that.
Hard.
I just feel like, I feel like you'd have to have something pressing against the back of your neck to make it such a clean cut. It wasn't obviously clean, but anywho, I'm gonna get sick if we keep talking about the gory stuff, honestly.
So I did already mention though with we saw her friend Joan, who she meets at the loss of a loved one thing.
Yep.
And she kind of stops her when she's pulling out.
Yeah, she's not sure if she wants to go in.
Yeah, she's like
and
leaving.
she decides not to because she doesn't really believe
Joan
in it.
stops her, and she's like the sweetest, nicest old lady.
Yeah.
Like ever. And she's just like, "Are you okay? Like, I lost someone too." She's being super helpful.
Yeah. Like the grandma you wish you had, Like,
yeah, and Annie ends up taking her advice, and she goes and meets her at her place. Which that was another cool tie-in that she saw the foot mat thing, and she says that her mom used to make those too.
Yeah, that was a red flag for me. I instantly was like, no.
Yeah. And so she goes in and she kind of talks to her about it, and then I already said that's where we learn about the paint thinner and that she tried to kill her kids and stuff. But then we see her again where Annie's coming out, like later in the movie, Annie's coming out of a store, and she sees her in the parking lot, and again she's like the nicest, sweetest lady like ever. She's like hugging her and saying she's so happy and she's feeling great.
Yeah.
And then
she goes into
turns on a dime.
Yeah.
And says the reason I'm so happy is because I found this to make me happy, and it's
basically
seances.
Yeah. Yeah, she's had
spiritual seances.
An experience with a, what do you even call those? Is it a gypsy? A communer of the dead? I think it's just a spiritual guide or something like that. It doesn't really matter.
It's through,
well, no, but like who the person is, the medium, that's what they call him.
Yeah.
Through a medium that she met.
So Joan says that she was able to talk to her deceased grandson through a seance, which is where, that character fully takes a turn into this sweet old lady into being like, oh, you're like going kind of nuts with this spiritual stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned like, well, there goes that character.
Yeah, because I was like, she's the nicest, sweetest old lady, and then she's like, I talked to my dead grandson. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and the whole time she's laughing it off and all this stuff.
Yeah,
but you know what
so
happens?
Happy about
yeah,
it.
You know what happens to like, well, no, the Annie. She's like,
yeah,
whatever. She's just like laughing at this story that she's telling, and she's like, no, I'm dead serious.
Yeah, and then so they go back to
her place,
Joan's place, and she gives
later,
her like a little demo.
She just says like, you should come by sometime.
No, that was right after.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she did convince her to do it right then that day.
Yeah, so they go to her place and she gives her a little demo.
Yeah,
where,
and she's just
again the cinematography and the lighting of that was insane, with just the tiny bit of the match, and then once she lights the candle, all the lights kind of rise up.
Yeah, it was really subtle too about that.
Yeah, candle lighting in like movies is super hard to do.
Yeah,
because you have to get it just warm enough and quiet enough where you just see their faces.
And I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, you have to make it so it highlights them, but not the room.
Yep.
And honestly, I think it's one of those things that goes right over viewers' heads if you're not a part of production.
Yeah. And that's where it kind of, the whole movie, I'd say that where Charlie dies is the turn of the movie, but in terms of the final plot line of the movie this is where it turns.
Yeah.
Is where Annie gets the first taste of this spiritual seance stuff.
And then after this, it's mostly just small events, like bickerings. Like I said, most of until it hits a certain point where it's like, because it's a long movie. You feel like you're in it for a while, and you're like, when's it going to start?
I could have watched that for hours longer. Like, the whole thing. Even towards the end, I was like, I could have taken hours more of those visuals.
Honestly, I think what it was is this, and I wanted to talk about this pacing. We're seeing this. It's a very long, drawn-out process, but it didn't feel like you weren't... It was the same movie. It didn't feel it was like two movies,
It kept you in.
It was definitely like, I felt it was like whittling you away. You know, it was kind of wearing you down, and then it chooses its moment, right? Unlike I think a lot of scary movies where they really throw it away early on because they give a spoiler or a very like clear indicator that there's something wrong, like to the family, and you're like, why did she go down there? You know, like it's like everything you see in this family, like if it happened to your family, you'd probably do the same thing. Nothing about it screamed like...
I mean, except for that husband. If I saw my family going nuts like that, I would have left like real quick.
Real talk, at the point where that Annie, like you said, it was depicting, because Annie is what is she, a doll?
No,
like
she makes miniatures, is what they're called.
Oh,
where it's
okay.
like, it makes like miniature versions of scenes. So like she did the scene from the hospital where her mother was dying, and then she did like she ends up doing the scene of the actual accident.
Yeah.
With the telephone pole and Charlie's body hanging out the window.
Yeah.
And that's where we're talking about the husband kind of snaps for a second. Like he thinks it's horrifying and gross that she's doing that.
And it is. Honestly, it's detestable.
It's also interesting because you can see both sides, where to Annie, her version of kind of almost coping with it is looking down from that third person's perspective of just being like, but it's just the accident.
In my opinion, the fact that she didn't see an alarming, like if I walked in and my wife was doing this, I would say the same thing. What is Charlie gonna say? And I wouldn't even say that.
What is Peter gonna say?
Yeah. Sorry. Charlie's a guy name too, so it kind of throws me off. So if I walked in, I probably wouldn't be as sane as him. You know, he was very calm about it.
He would come the whole movie.
Like even when he's popping off on her like that, you know, where he's like, the first question he asks is like, not what the fuck are you doing? It's how do you think your son is going to react to that? You know, I would not say that, but if I was in this situation, I would instantly take my wife, because it's her response that's unsettling. It's like it's just an objective like viewing of the accident.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying you can see both sides.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I would do the same thing. I'd be like, "What are you even doing?" But from her perspective, it is kind of interesting.
Definitely, because the word you used, the reason why I'm not trying to say that you're wrong is that you used the word coping.
Yeah.
If she had said, I really feel that this helps me kind of grieve with the accident and help me to get over I feel it's helping me internally, and I know it's sick. It might look sick, but I honestly think this will help, and I hope I'm going to put it away or destroy it afterwards, just so that, he won't be hurt by it. But it's
especially since she's making the miniatures, she's used to seeing stuff from that third person perspective.
So it's easy to get desensitized to
like
what really she's making. But that's where I'm like, shit's hit the fan. If I'm at that point, I'm like, trying to get my wife Annie into a psychiatrist. Or B, I'm just going to get my son and drive away at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, the whole time I was thinking, like, get her in a padded room.
Yeah.
Like, especially after the daughter dies and she's, like, screaming on the floor saying she wants to die. Like, that's where put her in
because,
there.
I mean, it's not even that she's, like, psychotic. She's just grieving so much, and some people are like that, where they'll get so depressed at something like that. And I'm not saying I even know. I'm not saying, like, I thought that it was extreme, but then I was like, there's probably someone who's done that and then been okay afterwards. And if that's totally fine.
Yeah, but then we also know
But you need to take care of yourself in the short term.
We also know that her whole family has
a history.
Like a history with psychosis.
Which, can we go and jump back to that point where she's talking about her brother, and she mentioned her brother committed suicide in her mother's room by hanging himself, and the suicide note naturally accused his mother for putting people inside of him.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember that vividly because I was like, what in God's name convinces you that your mother put people inside? Like, what do you mean fed you people?
No, but it links to the mom that we end up learning is a seance person. He's probably talking about spiritually. Like, she probably did stuff with the brother spiritually, like doing tests on him and stuff. Like, summoning and stuff, so he's like, you put people inside me. I bet it was a spiritual thing.
I bet he was like, I bet like they were kind of testing out and trying to put him into that male, because they needed him.
Yeah, I bet it was like a supernatural thing where she's trying to put, or the mom was trying to put spirits or whatever, or at least mess with his spirit, and he just went insane because of it.
Yeah.
which is super cool. Know, that you learn that ties in like that.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong, but that's just what I'm taking from it. But then you were talking about the family. It was also the dad starved himself because of depression. I think it was. It was
psychotic depression. I think is what she said.
And
it was
starved himself.
That he starved himself for, and I was like, instantly like, and I know this was the intent. Another classic misdirection. I instantly was like, he did not starve himself. Like, that is a story that was played.
Oh, really?
I was instantly thinking, he did not starve himself. She locked him away and starved him.
Interesting.
And that, because it was right after the birth of the child. So you're like, why do I need you anymore, idiot? I already have my child.
Interesting.
And that's why she wanted her daughter, or why grandma wanted Annie to be a tomboy. Well, I don't know if she wanted to be, but she was kind of. Maybe because of some, because Annie says, I was a tomboy when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Not that, because, and Charlie mentions this as well. Charlie says she wanted me to be a boy.
Yep.
And so maybe
Which is super
Annie she wanted Annie to be a boy as well. And she kind of tried to see if she could make, it's because maybe the spirit was inside of her, waiting.
Well, yeah, that's what we're supposed to think that.
Is that what the story is? That that spirit, what was it? I don't even want to.
Well, okay, so
pandemonium.
We'll just skip to it real quick. You end up learning that like, the mom was this seance like queen person, like this the leader of the seances and all this stuff, and there's this story in the book that Annie's going through, and it says that it's highlighted, like obviously the grandma was looking at it, and there's like it was the king of mischief or something like that, and he needs a male host in order to like fully do his thing, and so but it was saying like, I can't remember if it said that he was like in a female but he needed to be in a male.
I don't think they explicitly stated where Pandemon was his name.
It was like the spirit. It was like the spirit was just out there, but it needed to be in a male.
So they were summoning it into Peter.
Yeah, because it was in. We ended up learning it was in Charlie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then they needed to get it into a male host.
Yep.
So that's why Annie says that she kept Peter away from the grandmother.
Yeah.
But then she let her have Annie, which is why the grandmother was so interested in Annie, because she had the actual demon in her. And so that's why once the grandmother dies, you learn the connection that the grandmother and Joan, the sweet old lady, have known each other for what seems like a long time.
Yeah.
And they summoned together and they did these demonic rituals together.
Well, we don't know that. Annie first just pulled up the thing, and there were no pictures of them like, hey, this is us slaughtering a man.
I mean, you can definitely infer it though, because you
totally.
You see in the book,
because that's the point where she's like, something weird's going down.
And you see in the book too, there's that picture of the it's the demon sitting on top of like the pile of gold, and it says like the riches of the demon or something like that, and then you see the picture of the grandmother in her white thing being like shrouded in coins. Remember it, where they're like throwing coins at her? So it's like, okay, she's like that leader.
That was one thing I was just lost on. I was like, at that point I was like, what am I know this is important because they're holding on this picture, but
yeah, it was kind of weird, but it was supposed to be like, she was their leader, the seance leader.
Yeah.
And then she's trying to get this full host.
Okay, I'm now
for Charlie's spirit.
So anyway, let's talk about some of the things that we were noticing when we were getting into this good stuff. Originally, when Joan spoke to Annie and gave her this like ritual, we were both like, what? Like, what language is this in? Oh, I don't know. Oh, yeah. It's like, it's Latin. It's for summon demons, like what? And then, like, God, that was so weird. Like, would you actually do that? Like, I guess.
Well, she's supposed to have gone nuts by then.
Honestly, I guess you could make the argument that, like, people were grieving for, a
child.
All the time.
Yeah. They'll go to, whatever they need to cope with.
Yeah.
And, Joan's version was going to summon her grandson.
If he even existed.
I mean, oh, you mean...
Honestly, I don't think the boy existed.
Yeah, or saw the spirit.
Or she drowned them both. Because apparently Joan had this sob story to bait Annie in, which was that her son and her grandson both drowned together. And it's like, okay, really? Like, let's think about it. A 40-year-old man, or 35-year-old man, however old a 7-year-old has as a father, how does he drown? Like, I can't imagine he's taking a 7-year-old son in the middle of the lake, you know?
Mean, it could have been a car crashed into a river.
Oh, I never thought of that.
But that is interesting that it could be that Joan killed them.
Yeah, there's a lot of unexplained... Really I think almost every death in here was just so hard to explain to anyone that it's kind of like... I almost think it's weaving this narrative that it's like, think about it. If you're not in this story, if you were you're one of those guys in that homeroom when Peter smacks his...
Oh my God. I was going to say that there's that shot of them all sitting there watching him screaming. There's no way I'm staying in that chair. The second he slams his head, I'm walking out. I'm not watching that.
Yeah, he slams his head
because it's like a wide shot up from like the back of the classroom.
Yeah,
like kind of up towards the ceiling.
Oh, and that was such a great scene.
Yeah, and he's like in the corner screaming, and then they're all just kind of sitting there like looking at him.
And I think at one point we even take the view of just some random classmate right behind him, and then we see his arm go up like that.
Yeah.
And
where they're all looking at him after he's already smashed his head and he's screaming, I thought to myself, I'm like, there's no way I'm staying in that chair. Like, I don't care what the teacher says, I'm walking out.
Well, yeah, you see it like, he was not the back of the room. He was kind of middle. He was two seats
to the side.
Two people. He was on the very left of the classroom, if we're thinking about his direction. And then, so right from the teacher's perspective, stage right. No, it's stage left. I'm an idiot. Anyway, so in this scene, when he smacks his head, or he smacks his nose into his desk and breaks it, he backs up. And I don't know where those kids went, but those kids, they bolted, because there's not two desks behind him. He gets out of his chair, and he's crawling backwards, getting straight. There's one desk, it's empty, though, and he pushes it all the way to the back, and he's just screaming. Mm-hmm. And hell yeah, if I was in that situation, and he was bleeding in the mouth, too, I thought he, broke his two front teeth.
I mean, I figured he broke his nose, because
there was a lot of blood, honestly.
Wait, real quick. On the Wikipedia, the budget is $10 million. $10 million for this? That's insane. And it's only made $3 million so far. Box office of $15 million.
I was thinking about that. I was like, when did this movie get released? Because honestly,
2 days ago.
Yeah, and for how many people were in that theater, it was a travesty.
Well, I mean, it's a Sunday afternoon,
I guess.
Not many people see a horror movie at 3 in the afternoon.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. I forgot. Which I was glad for. Because honestly...
Oh yeah, you were panting like a dog.
No, seriously. Like, in this last scene, when we start to ramp up the action, I wish I was better with horror movies, but that is the most afraid I've ever been in my life, and I...
Oh, wait. Let's get to it first before we talk about you being scared. So we'll just kind of skip to, the main ending part here, where basically everything's going wrong. She tries to summon Charlie with the same ritual that Joan tries to summon the grandson. A face is being drawn in Charlie's book. The husband is getting upset and all this stuff.
Numerous attempts from Annie to convince people, happen.
Yeah, and then one of the main parts is when she throws the book into the fire and then she starts burning.
Yeah.
And she realizes I gotta get the book out.
Yeah.
And so then we kind of learn it's like everyone's kind of spiritually linked in a way. And she thinks
at least that she's... I thought it was because she's the medium, honestly.
Yeah. And so she
understood that as well.
Yeah. But she thinks the husband can fix that by throwing the book in.
Yeah.
Anyways. And then... But... they argue, and he says he's not going to do it, and she throws it in anyways, and the husband bursts into flames.
Yeah, just instantly, because she put lighter fluid on this book, and he just bursts into flames, and he just stands there, and that was the most haunting thing ever.
Yeah, he's not moving around.
Yeah, he doesn't like try to move at all. And honestly, I don't even know if that's real. Like, I imagine he probably just passed out from the pain of his searing flesh.
I don't know. But yeah, that was crazy because he's just standing there on fire. And then there's a whole bunch of visuals in this whole part where just
we see
incredibly unsettling.
Yeah,
like every scene from then on,
how
is just
pleading
unsettling.
she is. I mean, what happens after he, there's so many things, but
yeah. And we were talking about it before with the spiritual links with like Joan and all this stuff. Oh, and then Annie goes to Joan's place to kind of, she wants to talk to her, but she's like going insane by now, and she's like smashing on the door and stuff. And you get the shot in where there's candles in her place, there's robes, like stuff lining her walls, and then you see the same. Do you notice the same triangle that was on the grandmother's floor?
Yep.
And then this kind of setup with Charlie's toys with a picture of Peter. And that's where it's kind of like, looking back now that we know the end, it's like, oh, that's where Joan was doing this spiritual link
foreshadowed into
between, Charlie's spirit demon host thing needs to get into Peter as a host. Yeah. And then you also see that the pillow or the floor mat thing changes to Joni instead of Joan.
That was Joni the whole time.
No, it was Joan before. It was Joan, and then it switched to Joni because
because I remember when we first looked down right on the thing, I remember I read it as Joannie, and I'm like, is that a thing?
No, it was I don't think so.
No, I vividly remember. I'm like, wow, that's weird. Why did they add an IE on that name?
There's no reason they would have panned down twice then. If that's true, there's no reason they would have.
It's because the reason why is because she takes another look at it, and then we go back. Maybe you're right.
I think it was.
But honestly,
you look down to see it says Joan, her name, and then they look down again way later in the movie to show that it changes to a mix between Joan and Annie.
The only thing that I see is that the only thing I know is that when I read it the first time, I did see Joannie, like not two N's, but I noticed that. Well. And she said, "Isn't that cute?" And the reason, so I was like, "Okay, that makes sense," because she was probably like, she's probably like, "Oh, isn't that cute that I had an IE on the end of that?" And also, it's just a cute little thing, She's just very lighthearted about it, and so I was like, "Okay, it's probably nothing big." But if I'm mistaken, then I just read it wrong.
Yeah, I think it's
because you're right,
because they showed it twice.
The reason what I was thinking is that the reason why they showed it a second time is that she immediately goes back to the house to look in those chests, and she looks at the picture. But here's the thing: is that why did they have to look at it again? Because usually when they do a callback, it's something that you and I see when we see it the first. So we should have seen it the first time, and they wouldn't have had to reintroduce it.
Well, I mean, you could be right by saying that it was her visual cue to be like, wait, maybe this lady, like, no, but that doesn't make any sense because she only finds out that she knows the mom because of the picture.
No, because that's how she originally goes into those boxes, and she pulls out those first. She pulls out the little floor mats first, and there's one for Annie and one for Matthew or whatever his name was, the husband.
It was the brother.
Oh, really?
The grandmother made it, I think.
I thought it was that because Annie's her name obviously, and then I thought it was her husband's name. So that she made one for the two of them.
I just kind of assumed it was a brother.
Yeah, because honestly, she didn't seem like the dad didn't seem that. Anyway.
Yeah, you could be right that was her visual cue to go look into the book. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Remembering it, I feel like it changed. But I guess that kind of doesn't really make sense that it would change.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
All I noticed is that the first time I saw it, I did see the IE on the end, and I read it as Joannie, and I was like, what? Joannie. Then when she went to go look at hers, I thought, because originally I was like, she's looking for her own things, and when she pulled it up, I'm like,
it's the same.
I thought it was gonna be like she edited that one or something, but that wouldn't make any sense at all. But it was like the exact same style, so that was like our first indicator that they did know each other, that she got it from her anyway. So then. But then it just devolves down. So, like, right after the husband burns, she kind of turns, and then it cuts into the nighttime when Peter wakes up.
Oh, yeah. So, the whole ending part is, like, Peter being the last of the family.
Yeah.
He's kind of going through everything. Like, so now the mom, Annie, is kind of completely lost it.
Yep.
And which is interesting because I couldn't tell if she psychologically lost it or she had some sort of spiritual thing going on.
She had a spiritual thing going on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is your favorite part.
Let's I want to just kind of cover this as itself. All you need to know in terms of general context is that's what Peter has a broken nose and he's woken up in the middle of the night and he has no idea how he got there because he was passed out.
He passed out from school.
And then he's like trying to find people. And then I don't want to go into like any context other than that. I want to talk about it and just say like what's happening if you didn't see it again. I just want to talk about it because this is my favorite part. That was the most beautiful scene. In any horror film. When it pans out finally, not just to his face or anything, it pans out and it does that thing where it sits there for like 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And it is so long. It takes him so long to get up. And you tapped me on the shoulder and pointed up and I looked in the corner.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if you had already seen it.
I had not already seen it.
Yeah, because I was like, should I tell him?
I guarantee you, everyone would have seen it by the end of that 45 seconds.
Oh yeah, that was why. Because the lighting kind of brought up a little bit.
Really? I didn't notice that.
It was very, very, very dark.
I was staring at it the whole time, so I'm surprised I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was... No. It was dark at first, so you couldn't really see it. So then they brought it up. So you could actually see it. And so that's when I didn't know if you had seen it yet. That's why I tapped you and I was like, do you see it? And then after I tapped you to see if you had seen it, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that because then now he's going to be freaking out.
No, I'm glad you showed me. But it was so cool because it was just sitting there. It wasn't a suspense. You're just sitting there.
You didn't know what she was going to do.
Yeah. And everything that happened, that light came on down there. You're like, what's going on down there? And you're like, no, don't go and look at it. You know? Like, because that light came out on the side and I'm like, oh no, he's going to jump him. And then she does it. And then for some reason, he's like looking to the right because there's a window right above his bed and she's right behind him and he like looks full right into the corner. Why would you do that? But by that point, she had started flying out.
Yeah, I got the feeling that he only looked because he felt unsettled by something.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, it's just
like, I mean, he woke up in a dark house.
Yeah, if you're sitting there and you don't feel right, then it's like you kind of look around.
Well, yeah.
You know?
First off, if you wake up in a new bed, even if it's familiar, you don't know where your parents are. It's dark. Your door's open. You know, that's a creepy place to be, even if it's your own room.
Oh, that was a beautiful house, though.
Oh,
like that was a really beautiful house with the stained glass and everything like that. But the way they lighted the set was pretty terrifying.
Oh, so when she flew out the fucking...
Which was kind of weird because...
So strange, because she didn't just like Superman out.
Yeah,
she didn't just kind of like float out. She was like clawing her way.
Scrambling.
Yeah, it looks like she was crawling along the floor.
Which actually, you know what I bet it was? She wasn't flying. She was crawling on the wall. That's what I bet it was.
No.
I bet that's what it was.
No.
Yeah.
Because the door was at such an angle that she would not have been able to go from one part of the floor to the other.
I don't think she was
flying. But I'll give you that. I will give you that the rest of that part looked like she wasn't flying. But she didn't make a single noise shuffling on this wall.
I think that's why she was scrambling like that with her arms and legs. I think she was crawling on the wall.
I mean, it would make sense because we see her actually climb, like if on the post, she's like clawing to this, she's holding on to.
Yeah. And
if she's flying, she doesn't really need to worry about as much.
I think she was scrambling.
She must have been. It doesn't make any sense.
But visually, like to me too, it did look like she was flying.
And it was a scary...
I would have to see it again.
To confirm. But it wouldn't make any sense if it wasn't. But honestly...
I think it's scarier that she was crawling.
Yeah, because she didn't make a single noise. Yeah. And how was she able to get onto that door without like making it creak or move, or her body weight would shift it, you know? God, but honestly, if it was her flying, I think that's creepier.
Really?
Honestly.
I think it's creepier that she was crawling on the wall.
The way she was moving, why would she move like that if she... It didn't look like she was swimming. Didn't look like she was flying. It looked like she was like desperately trying to like claw at anything that could make it in her way.
I guess to me, once you break that physics line,
I'm getting a little antsy here, like anxious. So I'm sorry if I'm raising my voice and getting a little.
I think it's scarier that she crawls, because once you break that line between reality,
you're
reality
like, okay, if we're gonna be flying, then
and because I also think she was crawling because flying is where it gets like. You get into the fantasy line almost, but it never crosses that anywhere else. Yeah. It's like the supernatural, and you see in supernatural stories and stuff where they can like have superhuman abilities, but it's not like flying. So I think it's scarier that she was crawling, because then it's like a physical thing. I don't know, like,
the idea of it.
And I didn't think about her crawling or flying until just now when we were talking about it, which I think is so great about this, but
because you had so much time to wonder what she was doing. So I think the beautiful part about these scenes is that you don't ask those questions because the whole previous 45 seconds you spent just staring at her, you know?
Yeah.
Just, you're totally aware of her, and you're like, what's she gonna do?
Yeah, 'cause you're just
and
waiting
then
for
she
her to
does
pounce.
something, and you're like, God, yeah, it reminded me so much, Ask, of Conjuring, but I was so
when she's
glad.
on the wardrobe.
I was being tortured there, and yet I was also like, God,
Well, yeah, because, you know,
it's so unique.
to go to Conjuring, it's like, that's one of the jump scare movies where it's like she's up there and then it cuts away and, you know, they get jumped or whatever. Where this one is like you see her and you're just staring at her, waiting for her to move, do something. And that's why this one is so awesome, because it's the suspense ones are the best ones where you're just like, what is happening?
See, I honestly think I haven't seen a good suspense film in a long time, because most of them intermingle the jump scares. They try to they spoil the jump scares with suspense, or they spoil suspense with jump scares. Sorry.
Yeah.
But this one was very clean, and it never abused that. It never abused jump scares, you know? It was always a methodical approach. It knew it had you on the ropes, you know? It's been building for this moment, and you're staring at her, and it's one of those things that we talked about, anticipation of the viewer. What is the viewer anticipating? And they really beautifully mastered the art of making you expect, because they turned on that light for a reason. It wasn't nothing. I don't have any explanation for what turned that on, you know? And we don't even need one, because honestly, it could have been a light that just went on, you know, those motion lights. But what you did there was when that light turned on, you're like, she's going to jump him now. She's going to get worried that she's going to be seen, you know, and they kept building up this thing. And then you thought when he was turning his head, she's going to jump him. But she just gets out.
She scrambles out.
So then Peter walks down the stairs, and he's looking around so slow. He calls out one time when he enters the room, and I was on my seat, and he goes and he just sees this charred body of his father that has been placed right in front of the fireplace.
And he knows it's his dad too, because you see the wedding ring.
The wedding ring, yeah. And then as you see his horrified look, right there she is, right in the same spot, in the corner. It was beautiful.
Which one was scarier to you? Which shot was worse, when he's in the bedroom or when she's up in the other corner?
I don't even want to answer that, because, you know, it's both. I was more afraid in the second one, but that's probably because of the build-up of the first one.
Yeah.
All I knew was one continuous
with the
motion.
second one, you could see her better.
Yeah.
Like you could almost see her face.
And you could tell.
They actually did that. They shifted the focus for a second. You know, where you saw her face.
Which I thought was a little distracting.
I liked it because she didn't have a scary face. She was just normal.
Yeah.
She was just like looking at
Which
him.
was really spooky.
Yeah. But, you know, the first one was a little scarier where you just saw the figure.
So
you know? Because now it's like, you know, now I'm going to go home and see that, you know, in my corner.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I thought it was just beautiful the way they were building this up, and you know,
it was
at
just
that
a
point,
long shot again.
Yeah, at that point, you knew though it wasn't going to come to a third one. You know, you knew if they came up, it'd be boring if you did a third one. You know, because it was kind of like, wow, doing it again. You know, and you're also kind of thinking that, but also like this is the resolution, because you know you're seeing her, she's not a figure anymore, she's more realized. And holy shit, how does that progress? I can't even remember how it happens when she finally jumps from that one place, right? It pans back. So now we're not looking up from the fireplace. We're looking back as though we're from like the dining room table above it, like we're standing right by it. And then something spooks Peter, and instantly that's when the mom's all of a sudden down on the floor and she runs after him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she chases him right back up the stairs.
Yeah, so isn't that how... I was wondering... No, that's not when it happened. Sorry, that was my mistake. I was thinking that was still in the loft area where she was hiding up there. He actually goes back into the...
Oh, yeah, we totally forgot to talk about the fact that before even the dad dies...
she finds grandma's body that's decapitated.
Well, yeah, when it was decapitated, I thought it was Charlie.
Yeah.
You know, because it's decapitated.
But it was way too black for that, so I was like, it couldn't be.
Well, but then it was just kind of a fleeting thought for me because of the decapitated. But then instantly I was like, oh, because they had already set up that the grandmother's grave was decimated, or whatever the word they used was.
Desecrated.
And so, and then the dad gets the email for it of like, you know, we fixed the grave. Yeah, and like we didn't even talk about that where the grandma's body and all the flies and everything, like she finds it, and then there's the sigil like symbol thing.
Yeah, and that's when I finally realized that sigil is like, oh shit, wait.
Yeah, it's like a bad thing.
Yeah, like that's why that's bad.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was like, at that point, I just burned the house down. Take my take Peter out of there, I'd burn it down, and I'd drive away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and she shows the husband, right? She's like, go up and look. And then that was actually right before she burned the book. We talked about that for a second.
Yeah, which I'm really glad for, because, I mean, this is the thing. You were talking about it. It goes from realistic to unrealistic, where, you know, it goes from crawling to flying, and then it was that, honestly, that would be a time where a lesser movie would have pulled the, I don't see anything, you know? What are you talking about? But he saw it, and he was like, holy shit.
He's screaming.
Yeah. You know? And honestly, like, I kind of thought about it. I was like, that sounds like Peter, not his dad. But, like, honestly, what would you do if you found a black, dead body?
Yeah, in your attic.
And then
he instantly is super chill about it. Well, not chill.
No, not chill.
I don't want to say...
he calms down very quickly. He recollects himself.
He's instantly realistic about the situation. He says, call the police. Why didn't you call the police?
Yeah.
You know, which is, again, super smart of his character.
Yeah.
He's just like,
and then
chill the whole time. And then
here's the thing. He connects it with what she doesn't know, Annie, that the grave's been desecrated.
Yeah.
And she's like, you did this, didn't you? Or he's like, you did this.
Yeah.
Annie,
because of her sleepwalking and psychosis and stuff.
And he's convinced she's insane. And that's why he refuses to go along with it, and why he burns to death. Which I wonder, you know, if he had thrown the book in, who would have burned?
Yeah, I do wonder.
You know, I'm pretty sure it would have been him.
It probably would have, because the story kind of set him up as not being that useful.
Oh, it would have been counterproductive for the demon, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever was causing, which, I mean, it's unclear, and we don't even really, it's not even necessary, but anyway.
Yeah, so...
Who is doing this fire stuff is unclear, but...
And that's how it links back into what we were saying, how the mom jumps down from the pillar thing when she's up in the corner, and then chases Peter all the way up the stairs, and he gets into the attic, shuts the attic door and locks it.
Yep.
And then he's screaming, and, like, she's on... Maybe she was flying then, because
she was flying because she wasn't holding herself to that.
She was on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Damn it, you're right.
She's flying. Because think about it.
This can't be an episode without us arguing.
Yeah.
We have to get one argument.
Hey, at least we had a conclusion.
Yeah,
you know?
This one.
As opposed to 3 that we left off last time, where we still don't know who won.
Yeah, she's on the ceiling, banging her head furiously on the door.
That's the point where I was just...
you were done by then.
I was telling Daniel as we were walking out, I had this huge sweat stain on my back because I was just pinning myself to the back of this chair.
Well,
not just with laying back on it, but with all of my legs, my arm. If I had it on something, I would have been pushing myself away from the screen.
Even before that was when you started panting.
Yeah,
you were starting to hyperventilate from the...
Well, it started as what I do is I try to get angry, not afraid. So I get rid of my fear by getting angry. So what I'll do is I'll kind of and it helps me get angry. I'm like, oh, I gotta fight somebody right now, you know. But then at that point, when he was entering the room before we see her up on before he sees his father. Yeah. And he's entering there for the first time. He says, "Mom," or you know, I was like, okay, just get angry, and then I'm like, I'm just terrified for my life right now. So then we're in the attic, and he's looking at all this shit. Peter's like, fuck, dude.
Well, but then by then, there's candles up there. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who put those there?
Yeah, there's candles everywhere. It's not just black, which, you know, we can assume is the mom, is Annie, because by then the husband had already burned, and Peter wasn't awake yet. So she set up the whole ritual thing. And then climbed up in his corner.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
And he goes and finds that the grandma's body's gone.
Yeah, he doesn't know it was there, but he does see a silhouette of a body.
Yeah, we know that it's gone.
Yeah.
And there's candles surrounding it
but
in the shape of a body.
He's kind of just taking some quick inventory of what's going on.
Yeah.
Worst part of that scene, though, when she stops banging her head somehow. When she stops banging her head on that door, I was more terrified.
Because you didn't know where she went.
Well, yeah, it's what's going to happen next? You know, easy anticipation thing. That was a big window. First thought that came to my mind, she's going to jump through that window. Yeah. Again, I loved that they deceived me, they tricked me, they set me up for anticipation, and they were playing. It was a chess game.
Yeah.
And they were winning. They were 3 steps ahead every way. They were thinking, what's the viewer going to think if we set it up like this? Well, we give him a real big window. We make him think they're going to jump right through there, and he's going to be stuck.
But it does the opposite, is he ends up jumping out.
Yeah.
You know,
because of what's in there.
Yeah. Well, and talking about the mom banging her head, you know, we find out she ends up being in the treehouse. But looking back to me, I instantly thought that she was going to jump in the window too because it was there, the deception. But now I kind of think that it's she was only chasing him to get him in that room because the candles were there, the sigil was there, the body was gone, so she could stop banging her head because he was in the attic.
I mean, why did he? Oh, she needed a bang just enough that he like felt like he had to lock himself in.
Yeah. Like she gets him up there, gets him trapped,
Jesus
and then the candles are up there, the body's gone.
Sorry.
She sees the picture, or he sees the picture of him with the eyes gouged out, which goes back to Charlie's spirit journal thing.
Yeah, there's tons of the X's,
there was crosses on his eyes.
God, and then when it starts up with that that thing, that noise that you can't quite place, but it's definitely flesh. You can definitely tell it's flesh, very distinctly. And I was like, no. And I looked down for that. That's when I stopped.
We totally forgot to say the naked man when he's looking at his dad's
no.
When he's looking at his dad's body and she's up in the corner.
Holy
shit. And he turns around and then you see the naked guy just standing in the corner.
And he's just standing there.
Yeah. And then but you can easily tell he's naked.
That was after he left. He went back into the went into another room, right?
No, that was when he was looking at the dad. She was in the corner, but it cuts to his face.
Yeah,
and he turns around.
It was right. That is the scene when that happens.
That's when he got spooked, yeah. And then she's there and chases him. But you see him, and then we're getting to where you're talking about in the attic. You heard the flesh moving or whatever, or at least someone moving, and he turns around, and then there's a whole 3 people standing there, fully naked 3 people standing there. I only saw the guy and then the older woman, but there was a third person there too, and so he gets freaked out and jumps out the window.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about. And like you said, that's where you put your head down. As soon as you saw those people, you were done.
And I looked up at the very end of the sawing because it was starting to slow down, and I just see the look, like,
the 3
I just
people?
see one, no, I see the sawing of the head.
Oh, I forgot that was at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you hear the flesh being sawed, and then you put it down. Like your head was down, you were done.
Yeah.
He looks up, and basically she's hanging there. I don't know if she was floating or hanging, but she's basically sawing her head off.
Yep.
Very, very, very gory. Like it cuts to her eye and really quickly, and she's sawing at it, and then he freaks out, turns around, sees the 3 naked people there, and then runs up.
Yep.
Breaks the window, jumps out, and then there. So then you didn't see any of this part, but basically he's he gets up and he sees the mom's headless body floating. Going back to, I guess you were right about her flying. So I guess I'm
she was
totally
just climbing
wrong.
in the air. Obviously.
I guess I'm totally wrong. Her headless body's floating up into the treehouse.
I'm glad they kept it completely realistic.
Yeah, whatever. You could say you're right all you want. She's floating up into the treehouse, and then she goes up. And the red light is on that we see the whole movie. He is just so out of it. He just is so done. He walks over. That's where you see the dead dog. You didn't hear it die, but it's dead. And he walks up. He climbs up into the treehouse, and you see people there, and they're all face down, they're kind of praying.
Yeah.
You know how Muslims.
Yeah,
pray,
yeah. They put their hands.
They're all praying like that. There's people. He just gets up. He's totally fine. He's looking around, and there's probably 8 people there. They're all naked.
Yeah.
And then
damn it, I missed that.
Except for Joan. Joan is there, but she's clothed. So maybe the naked people are dead. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. And then basically
he gets up, and then there's a shrine of this person, a metal figure with Charlie's head on it with a crown.
Jesus.
And that's where it cuts to his face. And, there was a picture of the grandma.
He's smiling like he was in the reflection.
There was a picture of the grandma, and it was Queen, whatever her last name is. And Joan is talking and reciting this ritual thing. She comes over, puts a crown onto Peter, and then she's basically saying that Peter is finally the host, and the demon is finally in the correct host. Mm-hmm. And then he's looking around, and the headless mom and the headless grandma are both there laying down to pray instead of in front of Charlie's head on the little figure thing. And there's music swelling, and everyone's praying, and everyone starts shouting, "Hail," whatever the demon's name was.
Pandemon.
Is that what it was?
Yep. Because it was pandemonium.
Yeah, it was Hail Pandemon, and they're all chanting it.
What are they,
and everything like that.
Princes of Hell?
Yeah. She's you're now one of...
You are one of the 8 princes of hell.
One of the 8 princes of hell. Yeah. And then it ends. So you didn't see any of that.
I heard the
You're
speech.
very lucky you didn't.
Dude, I heard the speech and I was just clutching my necklace here. I was actually just...
Yeah.
It weirded me out. I was terrified. I was actually like so close to leaving.
Yeah, I know that you couldn't handle this.
Yeah.
Like, I saw you turn away and I was like, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But then I was, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I wish you would see this because it's interesting. And then it got bad. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's a good thing he's not looking.
Yeah.
Because I know you and I know you wouldn't be able to handle that. But, yeah, it was absolutely insane.
Thrilling.
Like, especially those last minutes. It's been a long time since I've been that, like, entrapped in a movie where I'm so fascinated in it. And just it had me hooked that hard at the end. And even if you had, like, even though you hadn't seen the ending, you were even still that into it, which is really interesting that you cannot see the last basically 10 minutes and still be that in love with the movie.
I mean, it wasn't even that long of it. It was only 10 minutes because they took so long with him on the ground.
Yeah. I think it was about 10 minutes.
Maybe. I don't know.
Probably
I just
7 to like 12 tops.
Then time flew real fast.
Oh yeah.
Probably
no,
I was
you had your
fun.
head down for a while.
Like I was just entranced. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've never been actually like I was actually afraid. I've never been one to scream in a movie, but honestly, I was afraid. I was
you
gonna
were
scream. And it was good because the one time, when she gets up to chase him into the...
Yeah.
I like...
yeah.
And like, I'm so glad that the music just kicked on right there.
Yeah.
Because I was like, thank God that
because
lasted.
most of the movie was silent.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting.
Well, especially that part.
Yeah.
It's like really undertoned quiet.
Oh yeah. Because you were like panting and I was like, everyone could probably hear you panting. When,
Yeah,
like,
and
she's up
I
in
was
the
being
corner.
socially anxious, or I was being socially conscious,
Yeah.
or I was trying to be. And I was like, I can't. Like, I'm trying to be as quiet as possible.
It was just incredible story-wise and
If
visually.
I don't pant, I'm going to scream at some point.
Yeah. Just even visually, it's one of the most visually pleasing ones that I've seen, especially in the horror genre. Their shots were just incredible. The cinematography, the swooping camera crane movements were just so good. The long shots, everything about it was
Everything
just
about
amazing.
it. You could tell a dedication to their craft. Honestly, everything about it. They did what you do, where they anticipate what is the view. We're not going to play a reactive game where what do we think that the viewer is going to do in this situation. We're going to set him up to think a specific thing, because people are going to think 90% of the time she's going to jump through that window,
Oh yeah.
The only thing that
like
isn't,
you think that the demon, monster of the movie is going to pop back real quick when it's quiet, and then that was what's so cool about the quietness of this movie is that you think any second it's going to come up,
and they let you writhe in that.
Oh yeah,
and they never really give you a jump scare. There's not a single one out there.
Yeah, there's not many.
The only one was that one where she jumps out from the like because she comes from the side of a box.
Well, and in a way
I thought it was beautiful.
The naked guy in the scene in the living room, that part was kind of a jump scare because it was so jarring.
Yeah,
like that was one of the first ones where it was like, okay, this is where
but
it's
it was
off
still
the
like
rails.
they just let you sit in it.
Yeah,
they let you seep in.
You saw
that.
his face. He was just looking at you.
You saw a lot of him.
Okay.
Because he wasn't, there wasn't like any table covering the bottom half. It was just like, it was like pretty dark. I don't think I was like, holy shit, are they like actually showing something? No, they weren't. But like,
oh, and then the end shot was it was kind of cool because it was like a version mixed of reality and her miniatures. Like it was kind of a little box thing where the surrounding was black, but then it was him, like a real scene, but it was in like a miniature kind of look.
Oh,
it was really cool because it finally mixed it.
I'm getting too spooked. We gotta cut it here.
I loved it.
Yeah, like, it was beautiful.
It was amazing.
It was an amazing movie. Definitely my favorite horror film, probably in my top 10 movies.
So favorite horror film ever?
Ever.
Yeah, it's really, really high on my horror movie list. I almost want to say top 2, or top as well. But I don't really have a list off the top of my head. But it was just insanely good. It had me trapped more than probably any horror movie before.
Yeah.
Well, we loved it. If you guys want to let us know what you thought about it, you can email us at themidnightshowingpod, POD, @gmail.com. You can also hit us up or look at our updates on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at The Midnight Showing, same thing. And we like to post updates and when we're seeing different movies and how we liked them on Twitter, and our handle is @showingmidnight. So you can check us out on all those. Let us know what you thought about the movie as well at the email, and we'll let you guys know what we're seeing next. Thank you all for listening.